Okay, all right, welcome to another video. If you are returning, welcome back. If you have never been on my channel before, welcome. Today we're gonna be doing just a quick, really chill chat video that I've just been like feeling prompted to talk about, and this is one of those things that you can like sit and chat about, and honestly I don't know if it's gonna resonate with you, but I just feel like it's something that I've not heard people talk about a lot, and I'm trying to get in the habit of like talking more about things that I'm going through as I'm going through them, as opposed to like speaking about them in the past, you know what I mean? Because I feel like that gives a whole new perspective if like for example, if any of you are going through this, like to have like a live time person like explaining their experience and you know what they're learning along the journey, like live time, I think it's just so valuable, and I always appreciate content like that. And I think it's really helpful just to help like anyone in similar situations kind of work through things. And also, like, I don't know, like there's always this push, you know, to make content for the algorithm that, you know, people are searching for, that's like, you know, often like really generic, I would say, that like, you know, people are gonna watch. But I just feel like there's so much more value in like nuanced things that we just don't talk about a lot in life. And that's really what I want to, you know, start diving into more, and like really being honest and like raw and authentic with like things I'm going through in my life and like my perspectives, even if that's not going to resonate with the majority of people. I think that the people that it will resonate with, it'll be really valuable for. So yeah, that's really the focus. Honestly, I'm probably going to dovetail on a couple of different topics, but I think like the overarching theme I just kind of want to sit and talk about is like basically like any sort of generally like a time of like rebuilding your life. And I want to talk about like, I guess predominantly like how laziness can actually be a good thing. And what I mean by this is like, basically to give you some context, I am at a point in my life right now where I am kind of starting from scratch. Like, and I've been in points like this before, as I'm sure many of you have as well, where there's kind of a void. Like a lot of things have been stripped away. I have a lot of time, I have a lot of space, I have a lot of potential. Like it's just sheer potential, which is a really beautiful time. But I think also it can be really uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to things like that, not used to periods like that, or you know, even more so, like if the things that were stripped away in your life were actually things of value and things that you kind of wanted to maintain, it can be a really challenging time, because now you can be left feeling kind of directionless and oftentimes like unsuccessful or like bad for feeling like, you know, there's nothing left in your life. You know what I mean? Like to be totally transparent, like right now I'm in a position where I'm living with my family. Like a relationship of 6 years ended. I didn't get to keep the house that I was living in California, so I had to move home with my family and kind of just like reset and rebuild. I had a very predominant like kind of executive marketing style career that was remote, so I was able to take that with me, and I worked that for a number of months while I was here, and I was focusing a lot on my health and like, you know, really just honestly like I would say like initially coming from the energy of like, okay, like we have to rebuild and like take action and do things. And to give you like a timeline, we're like halfway through the year, it's July right now. For the first like several months of the year, and I think honestly like the new year can kind of come with this connotation a lot, you know, which we're kind of starting to redefine, I would say. But like it can be kind of like a harsher, more masculine, like goal-driven energy, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I want to talk about why that can potentially hinder us in accomplishing our goals. Because in my experience, and I'd gone through this before, but I think sometimes we do have to repeat lessons to really like understand them at a deeper level, or like other aspects of it. So that's definitely like one of the things I was going through. But basically like so much got stripped away in my life, like all of my friendships, my home, my relationship, my whole lifestyle basically. And I was kind of like, on paper I was like, I'm massively unsuccessful. Then I had lost my job, like I'm living with my family, like I'm living at home, I'm 26 years old, like, and so that, you know, as much as you can be like, oh, like I don't, you know, it doesn't matter to me, like the status of things doesn't matter to me, like I think when it really comes down to it, like it's very normal for things like that to kind of eat at you, you know, over time. And I think, you know, that for me, like that was one of the most predominant lessons that I learned is like non-attachment, you know what I mean? And I think that's way easier in theory than actually executing, because I was like, oh yeah, I'm not attached to my job. I'm not attached to like these things. It's totally fine to like be in transitional spaces, like, you know, even if you're nearing 30 or like older or whatever, you know what I mean? To not be super attached to these stories. And you feel like you're not. And to some degree, I'm still not. But like, there's always going to be an aspect that's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, am I actually a failure? Like, I'm not accomplishing the things I want to accomplish. So anyway, all this to say that I think being in that space can really drive us to a point where we feel like we need to like put our nose to the grindstone and like take action and make change and make things happen. And I think especially in Western culture, like that is a really like pedestalized kind of energy to be in. I don't think this is like news to anyone, you know what I mean? And that definitely comes with like the patriarchy, not to like go into all of that, but yeah, like predominantly like it's a very masculine society, and so we're meant to feel like we're supposed to struggle in order to accomplish, and we can't accomplish things if we're not struggling. And I've learned this lesson before, because for me in particular, and I'm sure other people have experienced this as well, the more you try and the more you fight and the more you manipulate and the more you grind against what is and try to make something happen, oftentimes the worse it gets and the less results you actually get in life. And this plays into manifestation too. Like, I don't know if you guys are into that, like the energetics of things. I think regardless, like it's a valuable point to consider. But, you know, if we talk about like I don't even know what it's called, like the reverse law or like the law of inaction or whatever, like basically like when you get into that energy, like yes, there's a lot of will and intention. And so sometimes that can sort of like overpower all of the resistance being built up of you trying to like push against something and fight something, meaning that you might be able to make things happen in that state if your will and intention and belief is strong enough, so much so that it overcomes all of the resistance that you're building up. Because that's what's happening, is like basically you're saying, I don't like what is, I am going to change what is, I'm going to do whatever it takes to change what is, and I'm going to keep pushing until I get there, which is like kind of seen as such a poetic thing, but like at the end of the day, like 9 times out of 10 when we get into that space, like it doesn't move us toward what we're trying to get to. And so that's a lot of what I experienced, not only this year, but also, you know, in the past, but this year particularly, is like I had been put in that sort of masculine energy because of my job, because of work. And then when I was let go, it was still very much like that survivalistic mentality. And so I was like, you know, every quarter, every week, like I have objectives, I have goals. And basically, like, I think part of the thing that comes with that is like, we want to cut out emotion. Like discipline is the cutting out of emotion. It's, you know, disregarding how you feel and just pushing through and doing whatever you said you were going to do, you know, at the start of things. But like, I kind of want to redefine discipline, because like for me, there's been some very profound lessons, you know, in these past couple of months, because in my experience, it sounds great in theory and it feels great. And when you can plan everything out and think you understand like what has to happen, when it has to happen, and all you have to do is like follow that roadmap and like everything's going to be fine, everything's going to work out. Life is just not like that. Like even being in business, which is really as rigid and masculine as it can get, it would never work out like that. And, you know, like I feel like in that space, like we always want to like be like, okay, this is what we're going to do this month and then this month. And then, you know, we want all of the strategy laid out. We want all of the details laid out. But there's so many other factors at play that like we would almost never follow that to a T. Actually, I don't think it ever happened, because so much changes. Like life is a dynamic thing. It's not stagnant. It's not predictable. You know what I mean? And like, I want to kind of encourage you to like allow there to be intuition and like flexibility within accomplishing your goals. Because like when we get too rigid, a lot of times we're undermining ourselves, because like while yes, you do want to keep that goal top of mind and take action, I'm not saying not to do that. Your action can't make up for lack of alignment. And like in my experience, like anytime I'm disregarding my intuition, I'm usually not taking aligned action. So like if I laid out a roadmap and I said, I know that like this is what I need to do every week. I need to create, X amount of videos, X amount of content about, this many things or whatever. I need to create X amount of products, whatever I decided needed to happen in order to accomplish that goal. What I would then do is be like, okay, I'm just going to disregard how I'm feeling and do what I said I'm going to do, even though the feeling in me is like, maybe I should do this instead. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes that intuition, I think you have to decipher it because like, I think there's a self-sabotaging aspect, right? And I think that can happen where it's like, it's coming from a place of fear, where it's like, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of, I'm a perfectionist, whatever. I don't want to take this action. Let me just do what I feel like doing instead of moving towards my goal. This is a layered topic because I think even procrastination sometimes can be a good thing. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, after like months and months of like trying and like working and like struggling to make this thing happen that I was going to will into existence and make happen, literally everything was going against me. Like no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I strategized and tried to make it happen and put all the pieces together, like it did not work. And so much so to the point where I was like, I have to just like forfeit this for a bit because like I wasn't able to maintain what I was doing. Like the strategy I had built and like thought would get me to the place that I want to be at was not working. You know what I mean? And so basically in the past couple of weeks, couple of months, I would say, what my intuition was very strongly telling me was that the energy doesn't line up. Like I'm not aligned with the thing that I'm trying to make happen, which is why I'm trying to take all this action to compensate for that lack of alignment. And if you're not into energetics, it's probably going to sound a little bit wonky, but like what I'm getting at is like, just think of, if you're not into energetics, like think about in terms of psychology then, you know what I mean? Because basically like mentally, I felt like this thing wasn't already mine, right? And so I had to do a bunch of things to make this thing mine, but it's like, that's very different than coming from the space of like, I already know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen naturally and like not holding on so tight, like gripping on so tight. So basically what had happened is my intuition very strongly was telling me like, you just got to stop and you honestly got to just be lazy and like not take action and like not do things. And for me, like being in that energy, and I think a lot of us experience this, is like, that's a really scary thing. Like when you're in survival mode, laziness like is scary. Like it's a terrifying thing because it feels like you're not taking action. It feels like, and I think it comes from the survivalistic part of, being a human. Like, if you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, and yeah, you've eaten now, but like you don't know what tomorrow is going to look like or the next day, like you sitting there and relaxing or like playing a game might instill fear because it's like, okay, well, I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know what's going to happen. And so that's really that masculine, manipulative kind of, action driven, survivalistic energy. And what I'm getting at is like, in order to truly, in my experience, in order to truly be in creation mode and to create something new and to be able to align with something new, you have to get a little bit lazy. And I'm not saying that that means don't take action, but you have to make sure that the action you are taking actually feels good and natural and aligned, because there's a huge difference from taking natural aligned action and then taking action to compensate because you don't feel like this thing's realistic. And so you feel like you have to, make up for it and do a bunch of things. It's going to make your life so much more chaotic and so much worse. And I say this because I followed that intuition finally after a lot of failures and struggles and hardship and disappointment. I said, okay, like, I guess it is time to take, and that felt like a failure. That feels awful when you say, I'm going to do this thing, and then you don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's an awful, awful feeling. And I think that's so much of what we're trying to avoid too, is like giving up, you know what I mean? But like, to some degree, we do have to give up in order to accomplish things. And that's what I'm getting at. And like, honestly, like, even if we go back to like the business thing, like all of the accounts I worked on, the businesses I worked with and partnered with, the best business strategies and marketing strategies were the people whose organizations were very flexible and open and intuitive. So like, even in a very masculine business, like that piece is so critical. And that was one of my biggest observations is I was like, when the energy is different, the business goes different. It does. Like when people are a little bit lighter and more open and not as like rigid and clinging to like what needs to happen and like what do we have to do? Like, dude, like be a little bit intuitive, like, because you will have these urges and these insights of like, okay, like the next logical step. I think that's something Abraham Hicks talks about, and it's changed my life. Like just focus on what the next right thing to do is, you know what I mean? Because you are being guided if you can like open yourself up to listen to that. But if we're constantly in survival mode, it's a lot harder to hear those nudges and those impulses, because again, not to get universal if this is not your thing, but like universal intelligence, the thing that we do tap into when we relax and kind of get a little bit lazy, is aware of all of the different dynamics going on. You are aware of just the one, your linear idea of what's going to happen and how it has to happen. And when we talk about manifesting and how things unfold, like there's so many different things at play, and this intelligence is aware of those things. And so you might think like something has to happen a specific way, a certain way. There might be a totally different way that it can unfold. And that's kind of the excitement and the mystery of being in this void, of being in this place where it's like anything could happen. Like there's so much possibility. And it's more important for you to get clear on like what it is you want versus how it's going to happen, because how it's going to happen is none of your business. And for people like us, for people in that state, in that survivalistic state, in that masculine energy, like that's very terrifying to hear, because like if I'm not going to figure out how it's going to happen, like who is? But like you're in this dance with the universe and within reality. And I want to say that like even in the most masculine of projects, like even in situations where you do have to take action, you have to do things, and maybe it's affecting your day-to-day life. Like I'm at a point now where it's like my survival is at risk to some extent. Not to be dramatic, like I know I still have a roof over my head and things, but like I'm behind on payment, like financially, like my survival is at risk. And so I think that can be hard too, is like if you're like pushing up against that, like there can be that pressure to like take the action and do the things. But like I just encourage you to make sure that like when you do that, it feels natural and it feels like a good step, and it feels like it should feel like that action you're taking is moving you toward like energetically closer to what you're trying to accomplish, instead of feeling like I'm trying to push away from this thing that I don't want. And that in my experience is the best way to decipher those two things. And all this to say that like, sorry, my camera just died. I've had this too where like I'll have a specific problem and I have no idea how to solve it. You know what I mean? And it's like, in my experience, instead of like diving into it and trying so hard to like fix the problem, like 9 times out of 10, if I just like let that thing rest and just like take a step back, like it either A, resolves itself, or the solution comes to me. Because like if you're so involved in the problem, like you're not at the same frequency to like receive the solution. Like they're two different modes of operation, they're two different vibrations. So you kind of oftentimes do have to take a step back from things and kind of surrender it and allow the universe to either A, work it out, or like B, give you the insight to be able to solve it. So that's why I say like sometimes laziness and procrastination might actually be the right step for you, because it's going to take you out of that mode of survival and make you more receptive to like what actually should happen. It makes you a cooperative component with the universe and the natural flow of things. What was I saying? Yeah, so I've had experiences where like I'll have a specific problem and I'll actually be inspired to like procrastinate or to do something else, and I'll end up like somehow backing into the solution because of I followed my intuition. Like I'll be like, oh, like why don't I, call this person or like do this thing or go to this place or whatever. Like when you follow those impulses, like the universe is calling you to the solution if you're open to hearing it. So you kind of have to just like let go and like follow those things, even if it doesn't seem like you're being productive, because you can't connect your dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And I think so often that'll happen is like, you'll think that you're not being productive, but then like you'll feel like you want to go for a walk or like you do this one thing and then like that'll lead to this and that'll lead to this. Like it's like the unfolding of things just can't be predicted. And I think I think it's just so important to always just hold what you want in your mind and kind of let go of the how and follow the impulses. And sometimes like it's not going to feel productive, like it's not going to feel like you're making movement or progress, but you are. You absolutely are. And I just want to let this be a reminder to everyone, especially people in Western society who are maybe trying to make something happen or reinventing themselves, reinventing their life, whatever it is, right? Like, allow yourself to take a step back, allow yourself to chill out, allow yourself to relax. It is going to be okay. And the more you can be in the energy of like, it is going to be okay, and I'm allowing it to be okay, and I trust that I can come back from anything, you know what I mean? Like truly you can come back from anything. So just chill out, like let it flow, let yourself relax, let yourself heal. Let yourself stop trying so hard to survive, because it's going to be okay, and the universe is guiding you if you can learn how to listen. So yeah, I hope this was helpful and resonated with some of you guys. I love you so much. Please give me a like and subscribe if you want to stick around and chat with me more. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.